It's funny. It's better. Yeah, that house. Well, he did. Like 11.
Oh, starts off inside.
But he didn't really get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Here we are, here we are. Saw your picture, it looked great. Nice to meet you. I got you. We're all gonna be pretty. I hear you. Got it. Good idea. Yeah.
I need a tissue. Like, no, you saw it.
That's why I want to check. Yeah, we'll share. Hey, Grace, how are you doing? Get to see my buddies. Okay. There she is. Thank you for the I'm so short, I can't see my nose. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
I know, me too. Good lady. That puts the lips on, you know. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Let's stand for the flag salute. Ready, salute.
Wait, we have the kids.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Wait, the kids from my school.
Monique, can you
Is
introduce
Julie
them?
going?
We'll have the principal introduce them. Yes, we'll do that.
It's different than ours, sorry.
hold the button down on the bottom. Just hold it for like 2 seconds. And everyone else just smile.
Tonight, we were supposed to have both schools, Gavilan Hills and HDLA, but unfortunately, our Gavilan Hills students are running late. So tonight, we have our ASB president, Luciana Espinosa, and Ms. Alia Vargas, our assistant, or our vice president of ASB, to lead us in the flag salute, and we'll be doing both first in English and then in Spanish.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Listos, saluden. Yo prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, invisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
The girls, come back. Luciana, Alia.
Mr. President, can we make sure for translation that we announce?
Where is she?
At the back.
I have Miss Solis and Mrs. Miller.
And then can we announce the translation?
We have a translator tonight. If anybody needs a translation, let us know. She's right there.
I announced it.
Okay.
I said, if anybody needs
Okay, I didn't know that.
to get that floor now.
Okay, for leading the Board of Trustees meeting and the Pledge of Allegiance, Luciana Espinosa. And next, we'd like to acknowledge Alia Vargas. And we also have some special people with us tonight. HDLA and Gavilan Hills have had an extreme makeover this year, and we're using our instructional assistants in a brand new way. We are thrilled to introduce, if you all could come up here, Yolanda Parra, Yoli Parra, Stephanie Zolskowski, and Yoli and Stephanie are our intervention teachers, and they've been with us for many years. And as we often say, we are building the plane as we fly it as far as our intervention reforms this year. And we wanted to honor the instructional assistants who've been so loyal to us in our training. Some of us were trained in the summer in Orton Gillingham strategies and sort of the missing pieces that we feel are important for our students. And so Yoli and Stephanie, we wanted to honor you tonight, as well as our instructional assistants. So we'll be calling them up. Hold on just a second. So Mayra Palacios couldn't make it tonight. Veronica Peterson. Veronica. Julie Shaw. Yesenia could not make it tonight. Beatriz Salazar y what else do we have back there? Teresita Rios. And again, we have Yolanda Parra. We have an amazing team that we count on every day to take care of all of us, and I can't tell you how proud I am of each one of them. Thank you, guys. Thank you, ladies. I'm also so proud of Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Sylvia Solis as our team, because they are also incredibly supportive of all of our kids, so thank you.
Moving to announcements of closed session, there's no closed session announcements. Moving on to approve the agenda. The board may delete items from its posted agenda and may also add items to its posted agenda. If such items to be added arise out of an emergency situation as defined under Government Code sections 5496.5.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Just one issue. We do have a clerical error in the agenda that I want to point out. It's currently listed as 13G. If the board can scan to that part of the agenda, it's titled Resolution Number 0418-19. And it's an error on the title that's in this agenda, but the resolution itself is correct, which is 19-20. So we would just need the motion to be amended to reflect the change in 13G to be resolution number 04-19-20.
Jan, do you want to withdraw your second?
Yes, I will withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my motion and I will remake the motion to approve the agenda with the typo that Diego has pointed out.
And I will make a second to the amended motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Moving on. We are to the public comments. It allows each speaker 3 minutes. Prohibits the board from taking action at this meeting on items discussed during this time.
So Cheryl Rios.
Thank you. I'm about a month late in doing this, but I got here last month a little bit too late. I want to commend the board, Superintendent Ochoa, and the different management team members. In my opinion, I have experienced some of the best PD at the beginning of the school year that I have experienced in my 32-year career. And it takes a lot for me to say that. So I especially want to commend Gwen McCarran and her team for the day we had for special ed. And I am excited to still be with the force. And I hope that the force stays with me for a long time. Looking forward to getting my t-shirt. But also to Diana Herbst and her team at Mays, there is a different look, a different pulse, a different feeling that I experienced there, and I am happy to be there. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that and that we keep moving in that direction. Thank you.
Priscilla? And I just want to clarify, this is not about an agenda item.
I don't think it is, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My name is Priscilla Leon. I am a mother of a middle school student at Rancho. And this is actually in regards to the current issue that that everyone's been experiencing, the violence, the bullying, coming from other children in the middle schools. With that being said, I think that we have a bigger issue at hand. In addition to that, I do believe that we have, that there are also school administrators contributing to this bullying. And I say that because I've experienced it, my son's experienced it, and my problem with this is, you know, we as administrators should be an example to our kids, a role model. And they should be shown by example what anti-bullying is, and I don't believe that's happening. My son was bullied, and he was falsely accused of something he didn't do. And I need to know that he's gonna be safe going to school, not only from other children, but also safe from school officials, staff members, feeling safe to talk to them, feeling safe that he's not gonna be pressured or bullied into admitting to something that he didn't do. And I wanna know, how can you guys help me or even other parents prevent this from happening again? That's it.
Can I ask a question? Is this the first it's been addressed with the school district?
Yes, no. I came to Mr. Ward last Friday to explain to him about our issue.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll follow up with Mr. Ward.
Thank you for telling me. Thank you.
Adrian, is that Leon?
Leon.
Adrian?
Hi. I was just kind of wondering, with all this bullying that's going on and everything like that, I was kind of wondering, is it possible that we can get a police officer to be on campus or even after school to maybe patrol the area of the campus? Would that be possible?
So just to clarify, so we can listen to comments and we can ask clarifying questions, but because it's not on our agenda, we as a board can't discuss it. But we're being recorded and you've got the right guy there and the team there, they're listening.
I'll follow up. You get the President, Superintendent Joe with that question later.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
But we do appreciate when parents come.
That would be me, I think.
I'm sorry.
Oh, is it Anthony?
No, it's Amory Berto.
Okay.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent, thank you for having me. My name is Amory Berto. I'm a staff member at the MBAG Energy Watch, and I am here today to present you with a 2019 Energy Watch Champion Award for the leadership and commitment you've demonstrated to energy efficiency. So MBAG Energy Watch, we were started in 2006. We serve the Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito counties, and our goal is to increase energy efficiency across the region. And we've been working with 43 school districts to help them at no cost access $33 million in Proposition 39 energy efficiency funding. And so we, in that capacity, have also helped implement and develop projects. And so for the past 5 years, we've worked with your school districts, your school district, to implement a project under the great leadership of your Assistant Superintendent, Gabriel Blizon. It's really amazing what you've been able to do with that funding. You were able to use the Proposition 39 funding to pay for the Cool Roof project at RO Arden, as well as do projects in 8 different school sites to replace interior lights with LEDs, as well as exterior lights with LEDs. And then you've also been able to do smart thermostats projects at 7 schools. The projects are almost complete, and the great news is, to date, you are saving about $70,000 in annual energy costs. So I think you guys really deserve a round of applause for all that you've been able to do. I want to mention what a pleasure it's been working with you on these projects, and that MBAG Energy Watch, we are happy to help you work on any future projects, whether it's energy efficiency, renewable energy, battery storage. We would be happy to assist you. And at that point, I would like to present you with the award.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Anything we can do to help energy?
Thank you so much. And if I could take a picture as well, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Photo bomber!
No other point. It's 10. The next one.
Okay, moving on to public hearing, 10A. Public input regarding composition of trustee areas. Consider public input regarding the composition of the trustee areas prior to drawing draft maps of the proposed boundaries of trustees area. You have one, we'll start with the speaker.
Okay. So we have no presentation, just to be clear?
We have no presentation at this time, and we do have a speaker card, and it looks like we're receiving another speaker card now. We want to encourage every member of the public to speak to us on this item, to give us feedback, and to make sure that the public understands. We want to get your opinions on what you think we should do regarding these trustee areas, so that when we work with our demographer, the demographer knows what the interest is of the community on how to develop the trustee areas. So this is part of what's called the pre-map process. In other words, right now, there's no map. Right now, we haven't created anything yet. But pretty soon here, in a few weeks, we're gonna start developing maps. And we're gonna do so partially based on the feedback that the public gives us. So this is your opportunity to be heard and to give us your opinion on this matter.
Mr. Perez?
Good evening, board. Here once again, speaking on this subject. As you well know, I am a proponent of the district area trustee elections. I think it's important that we consider all of the west side as a community of interest. It hasn't been represented in most of the elections that have been taking place, so I think it's important that we, when we work with a demographer, that we also include those lines that probably already exist in that area. So District 2, I know, is a city council area, so I would take that into consideration as possibly maybe where you draw your lines. It's very important that we get more input from those residents in that area. I'm from that area, but I also represent LULAC as a president, so anything that I can do to help promote public input, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always willing to assist the board in any way I can. I think education is very important, and once you get people interested in what their kids, what the stake in it is for their kids, you'll see a bigger turnout. But I would also suggest that not having it just in one location, maybe going out to those areas and having a public area, public comment area, or a special agenda meeting for that particular area. So I just wanted to, say again that I am really excited that you guys are going to move this resolution forward. I'm a big proponent of equality, so I think that with this, it's going to prove that there is trust building within the community and that we have the best interests of our students at heart. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Luna?
Good evening, Mr. President, the board, and members of the board. My name is Mickey Sororio Luna, and I'm here before you on behalf of LULAC and the membership as well. I do want to thank the majority of the board who has moved this agenda forward, and I do want to thank you for that resolution that actually moved the district election process forward. It does take time, it does take community input, but I do want to thank today, I want to thank Superintendent Ochoa. You went on KMPG radio, and you'd be amazed at the outcome of your conversation over the air. So some people do not listen to Spanish radio, KMPG. Well, let me tell you, the results actually ended up in my phone, my home phone, and my cell phone. And I want to tell you all the people that actually heard it, and some of the parents that heard it, that wanted to know which one of you is responsible for their area. I said, it hasn't happened yet, but about to happen. So this is the interest that you already have from your community. So I want to really thank you, and I want to make sure that you know, with LULAC, you have our assistants. We have demographers that have worked very closely with other school boards and agencies in the city and the county, and I'm just glad that you're about the last one that have jumped on board. And I'm glad that you did, because I really want to thank you for it. LULAC has been around for 33 years, and first of all, I just want to congratulate Silvia Solis and Yolanda and Teresita, was just standing up here, former LULAC youth members, and my niece, Diana Flores. But anyway, thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you, because after all, this is the only way to go. This is the only way to have true representation of the whole community here on your board. And you will receive the responses like today, what caused that radio talk show. I mean, there's gonna be a lot more people interested in this. And you may be getting the calls, because after all, your phones are out there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Trevino?
Yes, my name is Shirley Trevino, and I just want to commend those board members that voted for Superintendent Ochoa to begin the process of looking into this districting. I think it says two things. One is that there will be candidates that will be able to run and be elected in a district where people live. And I'm not gonna have to go way across town to talk to a representative. He can probably be my next door neighbor, and I think that's real important for a neighborhood. Secondly, I think that in a geographical area, neighborhoods that have can involve the residents, and they'll have a direct representative, and I think that's very, very important. And it's just been a long time coming, and I think that as you go out, I recommend that you have town hall meetings and meet with residents so that they can be part of the process and see that the board is really concerned about their input. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to 10B.
You gotta close the hearing.
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Or for Diego. So what is our plan for town hall meetings and things like that? And are board members allowed to be there in mass, or what's the?
Well, the Brown Act would apply, so if board members chose to attend a meeting, they would not be permitted to discuss, the topic at hand, and certainly not in groups of 3 or more. And so we would just wanna take a look at what the Brown Act says about that. But we have a very comprehensive community involvement plan. It started 3 weeks ago. It started 3 months ago when this agenda item was brought forth, but 3 weeks ago, we publicly announced input sessions at R.O. Hardin Elementary School, which is September 30th, for those of you who have something to write with out there, at 5 p.m. and at Calaveras at 6:30 p.m. And then on October 1st at Sunny Slope at 5 p.m. and at Goblin Hills HDLA at 6:30 p.m. And on October 2nd at 5 p.m. at Ladd Lane and at 6:30 p.m. at Cerro Vista. And so by getting out to all of our elementary school sites, we're covering the totality of the district's attendance area and inviting families to come in via Facebook, via Twitter, via the district's webpage, as well as an automated phone call to all the households in the community, in addition to an article published in Benito Link and on San Benito Live. And if you'd like, I can stand out on 25 and just yell at the top of my lungs, meeting tonight.
Can you put this on the district website?
It is on the district website. It's one of the banners.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
it's one of the banners. And I think we'll have excellent attendance, actually. I think parents will be very interested to be able to come in and talk about these items.
Okay, so board members can go as long as we don't speak, and if there's
Of course.
another board member there, we treat them like they have cooties and we stay away from them.
Exactly.
I can do that.
Are you ready to close this one?
What will happen at the end of that process is we will compile all of the public input from both of the pre-map public hearings, which was the August school board meeting, this school board meeting, and the 6 separate community input sessions, and provide all that information to our demographer so that we can work collaboratively to develop documents for our next school board meeting in October.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this hearing and move on to the next hearing, which is on instructional materials. The board will conduct a hearing on instructional materials. I'm opening the hearing.
No comments.
Any public comments for this section?
We will close the public hearing. Moving on to superintendent's report on district test scores analysis. Mr. Ochoa, thank you.
One of the things that I'd like to begin with is reviewing the school district's priority actions, and those are academic achievement for all students, high quality conditions of learning, and active engagement of the Hollister School District community. One of the things that is very seductive and easy to do regarding test score data is to look at the big picture only, to look at the percentages of students meeting standards and benchmark yourself against that group and then move forward from that. In preparation for tonight's presentation, I wanted to share with the school board some data regarding ethnicity and socioeconomic status, disability, and language. So ethnicity is something that does not change. Sure. Ethnicity is one of our demographic areas that our students are identified upon enrollment, and they remain their ethnicity for the length of time they're with us. Economic status also tends to remain the same. There's very little variability, so the students who are identified as socioeconomically disadvantaged in kindergarten tend to remain in that category for a long time, and those who are not tend to remain outside that category. So when you're analyzing test score data of students who participate in the free lunch program and those who don't, you're really looking at very comparable groups of kids each year because they tend to stay in the same group. So those who are in 5th grade were also in 3rd grade, and so on and so forth. Disability, once we identify students in the district, about 95% of students remain in the IEP program for the remainder of their career with us. So those socioeconomic, ethnic, and disability categories tend to remain the same while students are with us in the Hollister School District. And there's one category that is characterized by high levels of variability, and that is language. So part of the district's process upon enrollment is we enlist students in what's called a home language survey. So every family that comes to the Hollister School District is asked to fill out a report that identifies what languages are spoken in the home and identifies, if any, what other languages besides English are being taught to the child, and asks parents to identify whether or not their child is primarily speaking those languages at home. So, if I can use myself as an example, I'm bilingual, but in my home, I speak more English to my 4-year-old, who is now a TK student in our district. And so when we filled out the home language survey, even though I will speak to him sometimes in Spanish, I reported on the home language survey that my son is English speaking because he's 99% dominant with English. So at the same time, if we stayed in the Ochoa family when I was a child, my mother would have filled out the home language survey and said, my son speaks Spanish, because I was 99% dominant in Spanish at that point in time. So my son would be an English only student, but I would have been an English learner student. And so now multiply that by the 6,000 families we serve. We're doing that survey with about 600 kids a year, because that's about how many we have coming into kindergarten each year. So once we identify that, the students who are potentially English learners are then assessed by our district. Somebody sits with the family, meets with the family, talks to the child, and determines if the child really needs assistance learning English. And if it's determined that that's the case, then that child is identified as an English learner. And that category remains with them until a process comes into place called reclassification. So that's what I want to talk to the board about tonight. So in San Benito County, this is all data that's available through the state's website. In 3rd grade, there are currently 278 English learner students in the county. So this is including school districts such as Southside and North County, Tres Pinos, let's see how well I've been listening all these months, Willow Grove, San Juan Bautista, Aroma San Juan I should say, and so forth. So just, those of us who like to do mental math, it looks like 2 out of every 3 kids, right? Yeah, I missed a few. But 2 out of every 3 English learners in 3rd grade attend a Hollister School District school. At the same time, in 8th grade, 151 of 179 are attending a Hollister School District school. So, let's talk a little bit about that. So something that we have found is a concept that I want to discuss with the board and open for any questions you have on this as a board, is this idea of academic regression and what happens with children who take, because starting in 3rd grade, our students take 2 separate tests for us every year that are involved in how they are identified as an English learner. The first test is called the LPAC. For those of us who've been in education more than 3 years, it used to be called the CELT. So, in addition to the LPAC, which is their assessment of English language proficiency, they take the CASP, which is an alphabet soup for academic standards testing. And based on those 2 scores, the students are identified as potential reclassification or not potential reclassification. So just in our district last year, about 1 out of every 3 3rd grade English learners met the academic standards in English as 3rd graders. So if I go back, and we had 195 Hollister School District 3rd graders, and 1 out of every 3 met the academic standards in English, then you just kind of, again, doing your mental math, you're getting an idea of how many potentially could have reclassified. But then you look at the 8th grade number and you say it was much closer. So what happened there, right? So I want to give a potential explanation. So At the same time, we have these 151 students taking the same test, the English language test, and taking the standards test, the academic standards test. And these students in 8th grade are scoring far, far lower than their 3rd grade counterparts. And so it is attributed to several things. One is, just as an educator, as a former school principal, as a former teacher, the children will tell you, I'm tired of taking this test. I'm tired of having to take this test and I just don't try. So we have kids, we have reports that show that children who were in 3rd grade scoring high give up, and by 8th grade, the effort's not there. The brains are there, the competence is there, the effort's not there. So my challenge to the board will be to think about this in a way where we accelerate reclassification, where we say, as a board, we encourage and support effective processes to increase reclassification and to ask from a classroom perspective to get kids in the most rigorous academic settings possible. So at the end of the year in June, I spent a couple of days with our Director of Ed Services, Mrs. Calero, and with Anissa Dizan over at Mays. And actually, I think at the time we had just hired Diana Herbst, or maybe we were still hoping, crossing our fingers that she would come work with us. And we came across a student who had 5 Fs, and the schedule for the student had the lowest level of English language support, meaning what we call level 1. And so I did some digging and found that in that particular case, the student years before had been, like I said, one of the highest achievers. And that student didn't get to take a science class, didn't get to take music or art or some other class that we offered because they were in required academic support classes. So, you know, those are the things we looked at. That's the analysis we did. As far as our test scores go in comparison to San Benito County, here's the good news. English learners in the Hollister School District outperform English learners in the county.
Wow.
Meaning that children,
Even though we're not doing that great,
even though, but here's the thing.
we still outperform.
I want to, so if I have a school district that has, we know the number. It's, you know, it's right there in terms of 3rd grade. I want to push and support so that that number becomes smaller, so that when we try to intervene in 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, we can focus more on children that need it. Not aim at a target that's the wrong target. So I feel excited about it. I feel that we have a really strong plan that's behind us, that's about to open up a lot of doors for these kids. We took on a lot this year academically with the adoption of Eureka Math and the rigor that's involved with that, the language that's involved with that. And I'm super, super proud of the teachers in our district who have just gone 100% towards implementing that program. In addition to the Orton Gillingham-based reading programs that are in place at multiple elementary schools at the initiation of teachers and principals. So I'm excited for what's going to happen in several months once our exams come in. Sure.
Are we, did we change the rubric for the writing?
That'll be one of the items that's on tonight's agenda.
Okay, because that's something that really needed to be changed.
And that's absolutely something we'll discuss tonight.
We do a huge push, you know, to get students pumped up for the state
testing at our sites, but we don't really do a whole lot with this group of students that are, preparing to test for reclassification. I would like us to see us celebrate that, encourage it, and really promote it in a positive light, at each site, just like we would state. And I think it's important to get our kids motivated to really know what it means. It's not just another, nobody likes to take tests. I know I don't like to take tests.
Yeah, but
but
if you've ever seen a student who went to a reclassification ceremony and received a medal or a sash or a certificate,
They're pretty excited.
they're so excited, they're so proud. That's definitely a big part of the plan. We are initiating our Saturday program starting this Saturday. Over 400 signups already, and we're specifically identifying kids in 2nd and 3rd grade to ramp up, to increase their access to just more teaching and more language and more growth. And then hopefully having ceremonies at our schools in November to identify kids who were reclassified.
So how many of those 195 do you think make up that 400? I mean, are we?
I can tell you to the number. It's a very high percentage. It's an extremely high percentage. I selected, as you know, 4 schools this round, and I selected the grade levels with the higher percentages of them. And we have had employees calling families off of a list, and so the number will continue to grow tomorrow, and the next day will be closer to 500 on Saturday. And it would be somewhere in the range of 2/3 to 70% of the students attending will be English learners.
I really appreciate the breakdown of, and telling us that we're performing, or that the kids in EL are performing higher versus other places in San Benito County. Because and I don't see it as a competition, but as facts are facts.
It's a measure.
And it's good to understand, because comments have been made, comparisons have been made for Hollister School District to other districts. And so it's important to know where we are, and that we're not, and that there's a fact that we're not worse off. So I think that's important to understand. I appreciate that.
I also really commend you for the analysis of this. This goes right to the point. If you talk, you understand exactly what he's been saying. As I taught in 7th grade, kids give up by that time. They give up, and it's really hard to motivate them when they haven't been able to see success. You just do the same thing over and over and over again. Why should I try? I'll just do the same thing I did last year. So this is just marvelous. I love this.
Thank you.
So one other question, are we as a board gonna go through all the test scores in detail? Or is that a one-on-one type thing?
That would be more of a one-on-one type thing. That's a real deep analysis, and we have, I think, principals that would want to be able to sit and work with board members on that kind of thing. I think we're also getting to the point where we want to start looking at this year's data as well, and not only the end of last year's data. But I would leave that to the board to give direction on how else you would want to see the data.
Well, personally, I think that we saw the data and we've seen your plan. And the plan that we have going between the Saturdays, the lower class size, more adults on campus, the extra VP, we're doing everything that we possibly can at each school site to enable children to have more
Academic access.
yes,
The other
and
thing,
adult access.
And adult access.
the other thing that will happen is in October, the state will produce the new version of the data charts. I think in the past, this board had been required to wait until October to see any data. So this year, we just did away with that. We shared with you the preliminary data. But I do have to say, and I'm a very cynical person as an educator, I've seen it come and go. The new charts, the new pictures are kind of amazing. The ability to pull up data and compare data. So one of the things you'll be able to do with the new model is you'll be able to, on one computer screen, so just as you're looking at your laptop, you'll be able to pull up the test scores of Gablin Hills, on the same screen add HDLA, on the same screen add Spring Grove, add Southside. You, on the same screen say, okay, I wanna look at only 8th grade at these schools, and that comes up. So
every, in the county.
anywhere in the state. And the old systems were very clunky. It was you click 4 times to see one chart, and then if you want to see something else, you have to basically leave that screen, go somewhere else. The new system is a dramatic improvement over the old system. So I would, with the board's approval, I'd like to be able to show you the new system because it's a really strong tool in showing the high level analysis to the board.
I think for Rob and I, been here a little longer, I think the presentations that we would get from each site in years past, because a lot of what's been happening in part has been you directly leading that charge. And I just wanna know what principals are doing on their end at the site specifically with what you are pretty much, changing the culture, changing the foundation of the district. But I wanna know what they're actually doing with all of those positive impacts that you've now instituted, in this district from their point of view. And that was what I think we took away from as a board, is learning from each site what the principals were really now focusing in on. What are my targets, what are my goals? Because each site is different. Each need, each site has its own specific need and focus. So I think as a board, knowing from that perspective was really helpful because it just brought the image completely together. We have yours, but we would love to see what they're doing with it as well.
And I think we would want to look at October, November, December as the time to do that. Once the new year starts, I think we need to be focused on getting ready for the upcoming test. But this 3-month span would be the time to do so. And I think there's some precedent to have multiple sites presenting on one particular night. And I think, some of the principals are out there. These people are attention getters. They love the spotlight. So several of the folks back there are just chomping at the bit to be able to walk up to the mic and take you through their data. So I think that might be a good fit for us. Stretch it out so that it's a couple each meeting.
I don't want to burden, or add to, but I think it just, even for the community to really see the full picture as to, everything that's happening and really appreciate what everyone is doing at each school site.
Yeah, that gives us confidence that principals know their school.
I'd also like to add, you mentioned something earlier to me is very important. We're dealing with last year's test scores. We have, as Jan said, made a lot of changes. I don't want to have to wait till next year's test scores to see whether these are positive or not. Like to have like an analysis. I realize we may not have test data, but have an analysis of how it's going included in those reports from the school. This is what our scores were last year. this is what we're doing now.
Sure.
To rectify or continue what we were doing.
If I could add to that, I think what I'm interested about is not just test scores, but I think it speaks to some of the concerns that the parents raise. I wanna know, are the fights decreasing with more adult supervision, with the ideas that are gonna be, is there less bullying? What does that look like? Is there less suspensions? Are we classifying, just a real, and it doesn't have to be like this lengthy thing, but just real bullet. What's the improvement and where, and not look at it as a punitive thing. I think we need to look at it as, because I hear, the concerns. So this is where we're at. And these are the ideas. There's hope. There's ideas. Now, are these ideas working and where do we correct?
Well, and obviously, we always need to improve.
Right.
And especially in regards to student safety, we have to rethink and redo and look at things in different ways. And that is a constant change that we have to do. So,
The other thing that we have to do is we have to innovate. We cannot simply accept how things are. So one of the things that myself and Carolyn Calero and our 2 middle school principals will be working on in the next few weeks is an application for what's called the Career Technical Incentive Grant. That's been available for 4 years, but this district has not applied for those funds. Those funds are designed to encourage and motivate and inspire children to pursue careers outside of typical 4-year college careers. Those funds can be used for facilities, for classes, for training, for counseling, for field trips, for transportation, and they're substantial funds. It's $150 million that's being put out to the state of California. It's based on a per pupil expenditure to editorialize regarding a prior employment of mine where our school district's enrollment was 1,000 kids. The annual grant was $148,000 for a district with that enrollment. And they tend to base your grant on the number of students that you have. So the potential impact for schools like Rancho San Justo and Mays are really substantial. When we go onto those campuses, we need to have classes that kids get excited about.
Yeah.
We cannot just simply say, well, this is the base level, this is, everybody does the same thing. We have to say, the high school is gonna open kids up to take these courses in career technical ed, so let's get them ready.
Yeah.
Let's start it in 7th and 8th grade.
Yep.
So the general spirit is one of accountability. I can tell you, the administration, the school principals who I supervise, all went through a process of understanding that their performance as leaders would be tied to the most important aspects of what we're doing as a district, which is get kids here more every day, improve teaching in English and math, not testing, teaching, and get kids outside of the school day involved beyond the school day, reclassify more students and move the district's process forward. So I think that we're definitely on the road for that. I'll work with our senior council to put together a list of schools that would present and get the school principals ready to do so. And then they can have their 10 minutes in the sun in front of everyone.
And I just want to make sure, we decreased the amount of testing this year, right?
That's
So that
correct.
more time could be spent.
Teaching.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then, I think it's part of this, but would it be possible for us, either through a weekly update or through the board meeting, and I don't know how do we measure that the number of fights at like Mays and Rancho are actually decreasing. Because right now, all I have to hear it on Facebook.
Sure. We can produce.
And let's be also clear that Facebook is not 100% accurate.
Right.
We can
In case
produce.
anyone doesn't know.
We can produce for the board updates on school discipline data. We track that data. We track that data for a lot of different reasons, but it does come out in the dashboard, the California dashboard. Myself and the Director of Student Services, Mr. Ward, are going to bring to the board some data next month regarding an issue that we have at our sites where we have a very small number of students involved in an extraordinarily high number of disciplinary incidents. So I might have 900 students at Rancho and 875 have few or no disciplinary entries in any sort of a kind of a given year. And then I have a very small group that has an extraordinarily high number of disciplinary entries. And that's something we think it's a gap in our board policy. We want to bring that to the board next month. We think it's one piece of a big puzzle of how to continue to improve the culture at both of our middle schools. As far as our elementary schools go, I might bring you data every month that says 0, 0, 0. I mean, it's very rare. So I think we're really more talking about middle school grades, and we could absolutely include that in one of the board updates.
And I mean, for even the middle schools, in hosting rallies, bringing in speakers specifically on those target topics that we know are becoming to be a concern, bullying, even, with the vaping. I mean, there's so many things in this county with other community agencies that are willing to come in to provide that type of topic conversation targeted to students. Because if we don't start talking to our kids about what they should and shouldn't be, and saying something, you see something, say something. I mean, and
Somebody
getting
will
over
teach
the
it.
stigma of I'm not a snitch, I'm not a whatever. But we have to start being able to be comfortable with these conversations and teaching the kids what is okay and what isn't. That's part of teaching. That's part of education now.
The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to understanding the role the Hollister School District plays is we are what's called a regional program provider. So the board is aware that we accept students into our district to provide highly sensitive, highly needed, specialized programs for children many times who have severe behavioral needs. So many incidents that take place throughout the year are taking place on our campuses because we are the host for a program that is designed to provide services to children that have very severe behavioral needs. And I'm not talking about sort of not doing what an adult says or sort of being unhappy about being told to do work. I'm talking about physical, destructive, intense behaviors.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind because to a parent who has a child at one of our 2 middle schools, they might say, all I know is I was told that there was a situation where the entire school office was taken apart by a such and such incident. Well, you have to understand it goes deeper than that. It's, we're gonna work on that. And then as always, our school administrators would say, let's think about how to focus on the positive with these kids. Because if we're always only focusing on the disciplinary negative of it, it becomes a pretty drab place to go. And we're pretty excited about some of the things we're doing in our academic program at our 2 middle schools, and I think we're really just getting started at those schools to bring in more programs and bring in more services diversify and innovate at those two schools so that these kids come to school excited and looking forward to be there.
Okay, moving on. Report 12A, report on the migrant summer school. Board will hear a report on the migrant summer school from
Yes, hi. Just gonna grab a quick.
Wait.
Like, no.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa, and our Hollister School community.
Make sure your mic's on.
I'm Patricia Martinez, and I am the EL and Migrant Coordinator for Hollister School District. And tonight I'm presenting the highlights for the Migrant Summer School, which took place June 14th through July 12th at Latline Elementary. But first I'd like to acknowledge two very special ladies. Lilia Espinosa, who was the migrant coordinator at the time, and Christina Atkinson, the summer school coordinator, and they are here. And it's an honor to present the report for this past summer. In the words of a parent on the parent survey, thank you for developing the program for my children. I'm sure this will have a lasting impact for their future. This summer, the program's theme was health, fitness, nutrition, and mindfulness, with TK, or a kindergarten readiness class, all the way through 7th grade. It included an ELD instruction and the packet program. We served about 350 students, including 8 Hollister Prep School students. It was 4 hours and 4 weeks long. The migrant program provided an enrichment intervention program, not a remediation program. It provided engaging programs. We are only required to provide 40 hours of supplemental instruction in both ELA and math, focusing in on claims 1 and 2. But it did so much more than that. We provided mindfulness readings and lessons for the students. The students participated in STEM instructional activities through math and cooking and health presentations from community agencies such as CalFresh. The students also were able to take part in dance classes from the Royal King Dance Academy that included a lot of culturally appropriate lessons. And then the students also got to engage in field trips. They went to Elkhorn Slough, the Children's Discovery Museum, and Point Lobos. And as one teacher said, it was very impactful. She asked one of her students she asked the class how many students had never been to the ocean, and 3 of her students raised their hand. So this was the very first time that they were going out to visit Point Lobos in the ocean. There were other services offered, such as ELD, which focused on providing daily language lessons, especially to newcomers, and that those lessons focused on vocabulary development for all levels. The packet program provided services for students who could not attend the full day program, and there were 38 students served, and that was by 2 credentialed teachers who either went out to school sites or the public library, or we hosted there at Latline. And the parents oftentimes sat near or next to the instructors, so they were also being provided some of those instructional strategies. And the way we measured some of our growth in the summer were through some assessments, including the EasyCBM, which is a mathematical assessment, the BPST, which is a basic skills test, and expository writing samples, and also the computer-based iReady assessment. The students in iReady were required to complete 3 lessons in ELA and 3 in math for a total of 6 lessons. And I'm sure that you're all aware that For some of our low income or low socioeconomic students, the research has shown in a lot of studies by Henry Commons, it's a 39 meta-analysis on the regression of learning during the summer. Many students regress from 1 to 3 months. And then their teachers, once the school year starts, the teachers have to take 2 extra months to catch those students up. And so migrant education is really providing or making an effort to combat the summer learning loss, or what they call the summer slide or the summer slump. And it's making it easier not only for the students to go back ready, but also for the teachers to just have a jump start and a springboard for educating for the upcoming year. And so some of our student data, I really need to explain. So the first row, if you take a look at the assessment scale, it's out of 100. Our students are off the charts, but the 1.8 and 1.5 should really read 100. So some of our students did, some of our students did double and go beyond their grade level, but we really just wanted to highlight that they really did meet those assessment standards in ECCV or the math. In the BPST,
What does that stand for?
it stands for Basic Phonics Skills Test. So the BPST does have a range from 0 to 85. However, for the TK to second grades, we were only requiring them to give the first 26, which is letters and sounds. And if you take a look at the data, our students surpassed that. So some of our students could actually read some of the words. So our average was 34.6.
How many weeks was this program?
This was 4 weeks.
4 weeks
Of
they made that kind
intense, yes, of intense learning.
Very impressive.
Mhm.
Very impressive.
And then we didn't have any baseline data for the writing, for the pre-assessment, but the students were writing every single day. And they were getting little spurts, not well-developed cold writes, but they were really writing as a byproduct of what they were speaking and what they were doing during the program. So for grades 3 through 7th, the expository average was 1.9, and the ELD rubric was used, and you know that's a very rigorous rubric. So to have all those students be a solid 2 was a really great achievement, and that's with 3rd grade through 7th grade students.
Now that's using the 4-point rubric?
For ELD. And I also want to point out that this growth data does reflect our region report. So we had a region meeting, and most of our migrant students, when they hit high school, are double outperforming any other student subgroup. So this data does carry on through high school as well. And so, just in short, this is a really brief report, but I wanted to point out that the migrant education did put out a very high quality summer learning and enrichment program. The liaisons continued working during the summer, providing services such as vision and hearing, screenings for our students, while working also on correcting their service codes for the rest of the year. So I really want to applaud that group of ladies. We also had cultural awareness assemblies. We had Zoom, and of course the Dance Academy. That was a highlight of many of the students' summer. We had dental hygiene and medicine safety presentations from the county, especially for some of those middle school students. Again, reiterating some of those partnerships with agencies that could bring in, like the San Benito Foundation, that could bring in presentations on vaping and medicine and medicine safety within the home. All students were offered a free nutritious breakfast and lunch. In collaboration with transportation, students were provided bus services for whoever needed a ride to school. So we really wanted to thank the district, and here is a picture review of how happy and engaged our migrant students were during the summer. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but words are also worth so much. And I just wanted to share with you one of our teachers. She said that Migrant Summer School is really a work of art. She said, I love the kids and I love this group of teachers. And I just wanted to thank the board and Mr. Ochoa and the rest of our school community and our district community for supporting the migrant program as we strive and support our students at Hollister School District.
Is this the first year you've had this program?
No, the summer school's been going on.
Was this program this year different than you've done in the past?
You know, I really have to give credit to Lilia and Christina, who designed this program, who made those connections between what is happening during the regular school year and what took place in the summer, so that there wouldn't be any summer loss and there wouldn't be any catch-up. The students, just continued on with their learning. We had reading and math supplementary materials. We had the iReady lessons on the computer, and then also the engaging dance and other assemblies.
So it does sound to me like this is different than what we've done in the past.
I think judging from the teacher and the parent surveys, this was a really impactful summer program. And the kids, they were already asking when school started if we're still gonna continue with the dance and if we're still gonna have. So yes, it was very different in terms of bringing all of those pieces together to make a really, really strong summer program.
This is very impressive. All of you are to be commended.
And the teachers who
For
did.
four weeks to do that?
And some of our teachers are here today.
Very impressive. You
So
should
thank
be applauded.
It's very common.
Yes.
Yeah.
Christina Atkinson is the one.
I do want to ask Christina to come up. Christina, come up and join Patricia for just a couple of minutes. What happens in the state of California is that migrant programs, they're very rigorous to implement. The amount of documentation, the amount of monitoring, the amount of work it takes to put on a migrant program is extraordinary. It is very, very difficult. What happens in many communities and in many districts is the summer program becomes so burdensome that it gets reduced down to the most basic level, which is 4 hours of English, and that's all we do. And give each teacher a box of pencils and some old textbooks and that kind of thing. What Christina has done here and worked with Lilia, who is now our famous principal at R.O. Hardin, but for several years helped put the engine to work, and Christina's leadership has been to do something that we can be proud of that we're doing for migrant children. So thank you for that, Christina.
So, in just looking, because I know a lot of it has to do with the consistency, and growing your program and the continuity, and having that one person pretty much oversee your summer. Because when we transition from your regular staff, that does migrant to summer, it's a whole different staff. So there's a little bit of a learning curve with reporting and things of that nature, but that can always get fixed later on. But I think the continuity and ensuring that the program stays viable and our numbers don't go down as far as how many we serve, because I know it's a little less than we did the previous summer. So looking at what can we do to increase those numbers? How can we start promoting the program earlier to some of our migrant families? Because I know for part of it is the movement, and some of our families do move during the summer, and for them to to be migrants, they need to move. And so, if they don't move, then we lose migrant families in that, and that's just the condition of kind of where we are. Our numbers are already declining because of just different things happening nationally and just in this state altogether. But I know that even for the high school, it's always been a challenge to be creative and learning different ways to provide the best learning environment for the students to, for us, it's part of it is remedial, but also the majority of it is enrichment, which is the best thing because most of the time we can't give these kids what they truly need is that exposure to all the different pieces of what it is to live and especially in the state to be able to show them some of the things that they don't even, like you were saying, the ocean. As simple as we take that for granted, some of these kids will never go to a museum, will never experience certain things in their lives unless we do it for them. And that to me, to see these kids get so excited to go to some of these areas, because I've seen it in high school with our migrant students, it's richer.
You can't put a price on it.
But I want to say is that the declining enrollment is not that the kids didn't want to come. But there's always kids, they want to do something else in the summer, they're busy, whatever. But it's just the regulations, that there are fewer and fewer that qualify for migrant services. And there were kids that just begged me to, can you just slip me in? I said, no, you can't, I can't slip you in, sorry. So, but that's just part of it. But, the program has been, Kim O'Connor several years ago started with the STEM program and bringing that in, and it was a draw for the kids, And that's the thing is that you can have this migrant program, and the whole idea is to educate these kids and get them excited about learning, and to let them know that they belong, that this is for them. This isn't just for, it's not, they have this idea sometimes it's not for me. When there's poverty, when there's that barrier, cultural barrier, it's not for me, it's not for me. And they hear that, in society they hear that. And so to create a program that they are proud to belong to, that they want to be there. That a kid is crying because their mom's taking them out of school early, It's worth every minute, that extra time, because, money comes and goes, you can have the same money, you can make that boring or you can make that exciting. Right. And it's just the amount of time and the effort that you're gonna put into it. But I wanna say too that we have a group of dedicated teachers that come every summer, and they are fabulous, and they are ready to go, and they are excited to teach. And you do give them something and you give them support, they take it and run. And they put in way more time than they're paid for, and you tell them go home, and they're like, no, I'm gonna stay here. You know what I mean? So it's a whole lot to that, but making a program exciting for the kids that are coming is what's important.
So, I'm gonna sound so naive on this, but what you have learned from this summer program, what are the barriers that get in the way of introducing this to the entire school year for these same kids? Are migrant kids still subject to the same, they have to have this amount of minutes of math, this minutes of English stuff? But does that get in the way of you using whatever is most successful in your summer program and extending it to the rest of the year?
There's a whole lot of stuff. I mean, if you think about, all the testing, I think it's during the year, maybe it's higher stakes, I don't know, but we have a lot of stuff that we have to move along and teach. It's like, okay, we gotta get this, get this. We move along. During the summer, we have a little bit more liberty to, this is what we're teaching, but we have a little bit more liberty to be more creative, to say, okay, so I want the kids to learn about cooperation, or I want them to learn about physics, and so I can bring in this, these catapults. They can build these catapults, and then pretty soon they're designing them, and pretty soon that they're actually using them, and it's just a little bit different. I don't know.
But doesn't the student data prove that your summer program is really, really effective, and
it lowers their effective filter?
It does. It makes them. It
allows the knowledge to come in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd love to see it all. Happening right there in the school all the time.
If we look the other way and to know that you weren't doing everything by the book that the state has given us, would anybody notice?
During the school year, we are required to provide migrant students with 60 hours of instruction, of supplementary instruction. So it's 30 hours of ELA and 30 hours of math. And I can only strive to create these artful lessons that Christina has written during the summer. So I think that within, you just have to meet your requirements and be really creative in your delivery of them.
Any recommendations for next summer?
Oh my gosh, okay.
We've written over.
No, I mean, no, yeah, I'll tell you, along the program, I'm gonna go back to Kim O'Connor, she set it up when you have the money, you spend it on stuff that you know is gonna be used the next time, right? So she had bought materials and kind of setups so that each year, could you have like a 4-year cycle, 3-4-year cycle? The nutrition one was new. It was a new thing, so we purchased a lot of stuff and we were able to do that. Lily budgeted in, we were able to get a lot of the stuff about nutrition. So that stuff, all those mindfulness books, all those things are set so that, in the next 4 years, we can do that again. And so there are several steps. I think the next one was like animals. And so you build then those STEM projects around the theme. And that was one of the things that we got from a survey that the teachers wanted. If you're gonna have a theme, then give us the books, give us the stories, let the writing be all around that theme so that's the other thing, is that the thematic teaching really does give you that deep learning. It gives those kids the deep learning. It's not just surface. So anyway, that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Moving on to the next report on reclassification. We've talked a little bit about this. Maybe you can expound on it.
So I'd like to say good evening, trustees, Board President Kane, Superintendent Ochoa. It's a pleasure to be here and see how all of these presentations and reports connect to one another and build upon and support that network for our students. So this evening's report by me, Caroline Calero, Director of Ed Services, is really addressing English learner reclass criteria, a little bit about the processes. The reclassification process is to really reclassify students who are able to be competitive in the mainstream coursework with their non-English learner peers. That's the base level of it. They do need to meet, our English learners need to meet 4 criteria according to the state. And that criteria, along with a brief overview of the process, is what I'm going to bring forth to you this evening. If you look at, let's see, I can get this. Forward, there we go. The 5-year reclass data, this is just a brief snapshot. It's not meant to really, go real deep. But if you look at over the years, from 14-15 at the top down through 18-19, you can see the number of students reclassed, but importantly, the percentage of reclassification rates over the years in comparison to the state reclass percentage rates over there on the right in the peach. So it's pretty obvious that we, as a district, we're behind the state percentage average. And in some years, it's double-digit, rate where we're behind. So it's just something to look at and say, let's move forward and let's look at how we can increase our reclassification rate. But most importantly, what I will be presenting to you in the next few slides is doing it in a way that makes sense, that is common sense, that's inclusive, and that really serves our students. So looking at the process and the rate, the criteria. So criteria 1 and 2 is basically what we'll call here internally our preliminary stage. And at the preliminary stage, we'll address 2 criteria. One is a state requirement, and the other one is something that we will be looking at and implementing as a district. The Preliminary criteria 1 and 2 will be initiated by the district office. So we're taking it in our hands to initiate the process where we meet with the site principal before consultation with the teachers. So we're initiating it, we're moving forward with the criteria of students who are at the preliminary criteria. They meet the preliminary criteria before we move forward. So we'll make sure we get going with it. That's basically what this phase is. So if we're looking at criteria 1, the LPAC, which is the English Learner Proficiency Test, the state requires that students have a summative level of 4, which is the highest level you can achieve in the summative rate with the overall summative. So they need to be at a level 4, highest level in LPAC that you can reach in the assessment. The second criteria, so that's just a given. So that those students on that list who have an LPAC 4, they're on the hot list and we're gonna meet with principals right away. Then we're gonna also look at the CAS-BLA scale scores. And those scale scores are by grade level. They're different because the scale score and the ranges are different per grade level. But basically, there's not meeting, nearly meeting, met, and exceeds. You guys all know that.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
I just question, is this, these are determined by the state?
LPAC, it's a state requirement. So that's criteria 1 is a state requirement.
Okay, criteria 2?
Criteria 2 is what I'm proposing forth, what our department and
Okay, so this is HSD's.
exactly.
Okay,
That's
thank
what we're
you.
looking at.
And-
Good
and-
question.
And just one other thing, are you the one that would be in charge from the district office to send this to the principals?
Yes, Ed Services will be working with the principals,
Okay, just-
which also includes my wonderful counterpart.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So the scale score, those ranges are at the mid-range of nearly met. If you look at the 4-point scale, not met, nearly met, and exceeds, we want students who are at least meeting the basic level of standards as assessed on CASP. So that's just that's a threshold that we are looking at when we look at our students and our student data. So I'm looking at this spreadsheet in my mind that we've been playing with, and it has the student, and it has their grade, and it has their LPAC level 4, so we sort and we automatically have that. And then there's the CASP scale score range, so that we'll just have a hot list of students right off the bat that are on our preliminary list. I briefly described over on the right-hand column our process, but because process is very important and it needs to be inclusive, but it also needs to be initiated quickly and promptly in the fall so that we can catch those kiddos. So, we send a list and the data of students who meet preliminary reclass requirement to the site. We send the teacher evaluation forms, which you'll hear about in a moment, to the site for the students who meet preliminary reclass requirements. So that's what we do, that's what we initiate out of Ed Services at the district office. The school site principal will review the data of students meeting preliminary reclass requirement and provide their teachers with evaluation forms to complete. So that's the next phase where if we were to move on. Did green because we're a green district, that's our color I'm hearing. So, verification stage is where we're looking at criteria 3 and 4. And this is really where we dig down and we really look at the students. So we've hit the preliminary data, we've got our kids on our hot list, we've done our brush over and working with the site principals to drill down a little deeper. So criteria 3 is really the teacher evaluation piece. And the teacher they provide input on formative data, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and those are those domains in LPAC. They're also assessed on CASP.
So do you look at grades here as well, or?
We really, this piece is not, it's, the form that we're gonna use is really prescriptive.
Mm-hmm. So this is subjective.
So and we'll be developing that further, but we really want the teachers to be able to provide formative measures and input that they have from their class.
Okay.
I'm thinking like real work samples over time. They might do a cold write or an on-demand prompt, things like that they provide as evidence. Because if you really look at it, it says that the teacher can share to support evaluation on reclassification for the student. So the teacher's evidence supports the recommendation for reclass or not. And so it's a real professionally driven process.
So the teacher, let's say you're a 7th grade teacher, that would be the language teacher that would be doing this, keeping the writing samples? Which teacher, I mean, because they have more than one class, which teacher collects this?
So when we put out the teacher survey data and everything, I'm still gonna get input from the principals on this, on the drill down of this process.
Okay.
But I would say cross-content input is important.
So more than one teacher you get input from.
I'm trying to understand like what we were doing or are we changing anything from what we were doing? Because I think it still sounds like what we've been doing, right? What's the difference, if there is any?
The difference is that the verification stage is truly there to verify what criteria 1 and 2 address. And it's not another, how do I say this? It's not another specific, discrete measure to hit. It's verifying through classroom evidence and through their ability to compete in the classroom with standards-based assignments and formative measures.
So my question
The
is, were
teacher
we not
verified.
doing that?
We have more specific discrete criteria above and beyond the first 2 criteria that were required. The other difference here is that we will be meeting with the site principal, and the site principal will be working with their staff to verify their readiness for reclassification. So we're having a structured collaborative process where we review the data, we look at evidence of students' ability to compete in classrooms at a basic level with the grade level standards. And so it's not, say, a specific writing sample with a specific rubric. There are grade level standards based formative assessments that the teachers do all the time.
A question that Carla and I are trying to figure out. So if I'm a history teacher and I do an essay and do I use a different rubric for my ELs, or can I use the same rubric for all my students?
It's the same, and the reason, the rationale behind that is, back on the original slide, and it's actually from the state, that students are reclassified when they're ready to be at a competitive level with their non-EL counterparts in the regular classroom on standards
So
based.
we were doing that differently, so this is the change.
I would say the other shift is gonna be that the school district, myself included this first year, will provide new principals, for example, who, I'll just use Mays as an example. We saw data showing that we have students that have not reclassified for several years, 3rd, 4th, 5th, they're now 6th graders at Mays. And we will make a recommendation to the administration at that school to consider reclassifying the kids based on the data we have, which is how they scored on the ALPAC and how they scored on the CASP. And then Caroline will have a meeting with Patricia and Diana here to review those students here, to hear from them. Talk to us about these children, why, explain the reason not to consider reclassification for a student that has a level 4 on their language ability and meeting standards on the test they took, and take it from there. So I would say it's almost like a two-way process where it's the district staff, specifically Patricia and Caroline, and this first year myself, and then next year, the two of them. Collaborating with the principals on that.
I think this is good.
Thank you. So basically that process with the teacher evaluation piece, you know, a teacher might say, I don't need to offer very much evidence, or here's what I have in the class. It doesn't need to be this huge thing. It's just really at the discretion.
So they're not like keeping a portfolio or something on the kids.
Well, I wanted to use the P word, but we're not there yet. But yes, I did, when I taught, I had a portfolio.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because in the past, we've
Works
done
out.
things like that, and I had to keep that for certain students.
Yeah, because how would the principal know to come forward to make certain recommendations if they don't really have
Kinda
feedback
base
from
it
the
on it.
teacher or teachers as to what they see,
Right.
you know, happening in the classroom?
Exactly, so it's engaging the site principals in that dialogue, it's engaging the teachers in the preliminary stage. The principal is really beginning to send those forms out and ask the teachers to think about it and things like that.
Also as curriculum, I think it's wise, it's always kind of nice to grab a first writing sample at the beginning of the year, then grab one closer to like in spring, and then the kids get to see, oh my gosh. And they get to look to see how they've improved.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my goodness, I did that?
Yeah.
And it's just a real wake up, I mean, they love it,
Or
so.
look what I used to write.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I did that.
The light bulbs go on, that's what we
That's
do.
right.
I mean, we're looking at the body of work of a student, of an English learner in the context of their classroom.
I do think teacher input's extremely important here, extremely important. They're the ones that have the closest contact with those kids, and they have a lot of input from them.
Yes, so criteria 3 is very, very important. And it outlines it, you can see on your handout, really what we really want to make sure that the school site and the district office, site administration have at the table at that verification meeting where they're really looking at, the principals had the conversation with the teachers, there's a little, easy go-to kind of form, but it's really informed by the conversations and the evaluation of the student performance in the classroom. And so there's that process in that meeting, we finalize it, and if you notice, highlight the students who are approved for reclassification and complete the reclassification form. So we're sitting there doing that together, it's done. Schedule the reclassification parent consultation meeting, that's done. So it's just moving right along. Criteria 4 is the parent consultation. This is very, very important. This is really, really important. And we've done a lot of this already. It's not like this is something brand new, but this is just kind of solidifying the process and keeping it moving. So the parent reviews the student reclass data with the parent, review the reclass data with the parent, gather their input and signatures. So it's important that we really engage them and work on outreach, celebration, and making this like the best phone call they could ever get, and they wanna come in and have a look at that. There are cases, somebody asked me, have you ever had parents not wanna sign it? I've had 2, and I worked at Watsonville High, there was like 800 ELs every year that we worked with, so it's very rare, this is a happy moment. We'll submit the reclass form with all the signatures and parent approval to Ed Services, and when we will complete the announcement of reclassification to mail to the parents. So there's like this form, it's in English and Spanish. It's a formal notification and invite. Yes, is there any more?
I'm wondering on the parent piece, like is there a place, of course involving them once they reclassify, but is there a place before that or in between where?
Around the same time that you're getting feedback from teachers, kind of to mesh it all together.
So that the parents, are also aware and helping and, and knowing how to help, because, yeah.
So the work where that lies is really in the site and in the instruction and with the principal and the teachers, but much ahead of this. prior to this. And there'll be more to come when we talk about our students who are nearly there, but not at the LPAC 4, but that's not this board meeting. So where we move is we begin to, once that's nailed, then we have recognition and we reclassify. And we want this to become something, by the time we get here, there's been a lot of momentum and there's been a lot of people involved in the formal process. But that doesn't discount all the work that everybody's done all along that's necessary to move the students along. So our initial reclassification window is, I might have to go back, but October 1st through November 30th, we want to begin having those meetings with the principals and get this going right away, because there are kiddos out there that are ready to be in the preliminary list, that hot list. So we'll be meeting with the principals very quickly. And then we want to have site celebrations in December and board recognition in January. Now, I always make promises and get ahead of myself, but I really want to meet this time frame and have the celebrations and build that momentum for our students.
This last piece is extremely important, because in the past, these kids haven't been recognized at all. And this is quite an achievement.
We did.
Oh, we have?
We have.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We have.
I remember.
I know, not at the
We
school
have.
sites. Not
No,
at the-
here,
the
down
kids
here.
Oh, here, not at the school sites.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Maybe now, not
We have a huge spaghetti dinner.
because this is extremely important.
Right, so that's that piece that's important. So we're engaging parents, we're engaging teachers, we're engaging the district office, supporting the site leaders and making sure that things are moving. So we want to have an inclusive process, but we want it to move. We want to move our kids quickly.
So after we reclassify, I know for some kids, we just don't wanna, okay, there you go. But they still need
Oh, yeah,
that continuous
support.
watch over.
I agree.
And, cause we still have to watch over them, right, for 3 years?
Yeah.
Just to make sure they're not
And
falling back.
that is the, I think that's the $100, like you're hitting it right on the head, that is the piece to really invest in. Reclass is not the end, it's the beginning.
Yeah.
And so really investing on what does monitoring look like,
Right.
what do the supports look like? That is something that is a paradigm that, sometimes the end game is, it's kind of like the Casey member that you just want to get them to pass that, but that isn't what it's about.
Right.
And so getting kids reclassed isn't really what it's about. It's helping them sustain and maintain so that they are ready to achieve at the at the high school level and post-secondary.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I just have a question. I don't know if I can ask a question, but it looks like it's starting at 3rd grade. Are we not classifying below 3rd grade?
This is really targeting for our hot list of 3rd grade. If you look at K12, TK12, I would recommend that we look at our lists at the verification level and begin to look at verifying students. It gets back to what Mr. Ochoa was saying about how students are identified and monitoring them along the way. And that would be something that we would meet with the principals on and really begin to look at that. The best, this is me editorializing, but the best way to ensure our students are prepared is to have a strong early literacy program. If there's students who just don't belong in an EL, as an English learner, then we will definitely work to reclass them, but it'll follow that verification process and it will be very well thought out and it'll be collaborative. But right now, investing in early literacy is what our whole focus is in. I'm preaching to the choir when I look into those eyes of yours, I know that.
I have a question. Is this a state with the siblings? Like, let's say you have siblings that start off, kind of going with the superintendent's example of,
Who's identifying
at
when
the
they're filling out
beginning,
the
right, when
form.
you're identifying it, the first child kind of determines the family, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
So
No.
if-
There's a homeland survey for every child.
at every point.
But if as a parent,
So as a
you know,
sibling, you're not automatically,
In my house, my husband filled it out for one and I filled it out for the other, and they were like, you know.
see, that's what I'm
that's
saying,
that's
so
my
how do
question,
we?
that's my question, right, with different blended families, all
Yes.
kinds of dynamics. So then each child gets
Right.
their own.
Right, and one of the things that happens is there are very strict rules about how to rectify that data. The State Department gives out very strict guidelines on correcting or fixing any. It's very difficult to do after the district has evaluated the child. So if you have one spouse who takes a child in to do the registration and says, my child speaks Spanish, and then the other spouse says, no, he does not, he speaks English. That correction has to be made before the district evaluates the child. Once the district evaluates the child and, you know, a staff member says, yes, this child speaks Spanish, even if the other parent disagrees with it, it would take an act of Congress to get that changed. It's really difficult to do that because there's a desire to not sort of just kind of go in and change the numbers after. So once the home language survey process is completed at the initiation of registration, it's really hard to undo it. And then I think you're going into different school practices, almost like, oh, here, you filled this out last time, here, here's this last one, you can look at this one, I'll show you what you wrote last time. So sometimes that happens, but every child's language ability is assessed independently.
Of the initial. Thank you, and thank you for caring so much about this important topic.
Yeah, good job, good job.
This has been a big one for us.
Moving on to the 12C, report on school configuration.
Nothing to see here at all. This is super easy, no questions or comments are needed. Just move forward,
That's why he's
2019 school configuration.
Is this what?
It'll be a 2-minute topic and as the board is aware, our school district is putting into place a new campus on Fairview and Sunny Slope. And that campus, Rancho Santana, is intended to serve a TK through 8th grade student population. So I want to review with the school board some data regarding our current schools. We have TK through 5 campuses, Sarah Vista, Gabilan Hills, Ladd Lane, for the time being Rancho Santana, and Aro Hardin and Sunny Slope. We have TK through 8 campuses at Calaveras and Hollister Dual Language Academy. We have a 4 through 8 campus at Accelerated Achievement Academy. And we have traditional 6 through 8 middle schools at Mays and Rancho San Justo. Our current enrollment at those sites is indicated on the next page, which is Sarah Vista. Ooh, $5.99. Where's that one kid? I was gonna type in 600, Gabriela, but I said no. $5.99.
Did you get it today?
She says, yeah. Gabilan Hills, Ladd Lane, Rancho Santana again is not there now, and I'll explain why it's in the K5 category initially. Aro Hardin and Sunny Slope. So in terms of K8 campuses, TK through 8 campuses, Calaveras and Hollister Dual Language Academy. The 4th through 8th grade campus, Accelerated Achievement Academy at 191, and our 2 middle schools at 720 and 870.
Do we, am I looking at this right? Do we have 1,000 kids at the Gabilan Hill campus?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have.
That's correct.
For years now.
Yeah.
You have, in order of largest schools to smallest schools in terms of enrollment, you have the combined Hollister Dual Language Academy and Gabilan Hills. You have Rancho San Justo, and you have Mays almost on par with Calaveras and Accelerated Achievement Academy. And then from there, the K5s fall in line. So what I want to bring to the board's attention is a couple of very important issues. It looks like someone on my admin team made an error on the second word there. I definitely didn't do that, so I'll be looking into that.
With the enrollment.
Admin team, I'm warning you, one of you who made the error is gonna answer to me later. The one that looks at you did it. Everyone looked away, buddy. You looked right at me.
Is it the new guy?
So what does it tell us about our schools in 5 years? As the board is well aware, 5 years ago, Hollister Dual Language Academy was doubled in size. The typical kindergarten class at Hollister Dual Language Academy was between 50 and 55. And that number has now grown to 105. There are 105 kindergarten students at Hollister Dual Language Academy. For each of the last 5 years, that group has grown each year. So it has this funny fit right now where we have 60 kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but every grade before that is 100 to 105. So do the math. In 3 years, it's gonna have from kinder, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and TK with 50. So in and of itself, Hollister Dual Language Academy will have 950 kids enrolled. So we need to think about and talk about what that means if we know we have a school that has 191 kids also attending as part of Gavilan Hills. It's uncomfortable. It's been in the background. As the new superintendent, I want the board to know I've been sought out by parents who live in the Gavilan Hills neighborhood who have come to me and said, just tell us the truth. What is going to happen to our kids? We are not blind. We see the Hollister Dual Language Academy growing. I would say they're very spirited. They love their children. They just want to know. They just want to know. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is 2 years ago, Accelerated Achievement Academy was expanded as well. So that school had about 25 to 30 kids per grade level, and that's now doubled. So that we have 50 kids in 4th grade and 50 kids in 5th grade. So you start to do the math. What does that mean for that school pushing out into the future? Okay, now for those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that's a pretty big increase over, it used to be a school of 120 students, it will now be 250. And the home school, Calaveras, is at 515, with Allendale homes still building, with the homes across the street from Calaveras, 200 and some odd houses there,
Those apartments.
with the apartments and the houses down Buena Vista going towards San Juan Bautista. So we need to think about that. Another very timely conversation is, are Mays and Rancho San Justo too large in terms of school enrollment? And what will happen if enrollment in the district continues to increase and Rancho San Justo and Mays remain the same size? 8 months in, I can tell you that the challenge of putting together an academic program and maintaining effective disciplinary cultures at those schools with the school size is all we can handle. Our administration and teachers and staff at those schools are just, I think they just love it because every single aspect of it is hard. The tempo is hard. I did mention to the board we are a regional program provider, so when any student in the middle grades, so 12, 13, 14-year-old has an emotional disturbance, those children attend Mays Middle School. So that class is comprised of children who live in surrounding neighborhoods and our own, and that class is extraordinarily challenging for the overall culture of the school. And then you add in addition to that, moderate and severe programs at those schools, and you add in at Rancho San Justo, there's something like 55 staff members at that school are in the special education program because of the very intense medical and pre-academic needs that the children in the Rancho San Justo program require. So it's not really even just 900 kids, it's 900 kids and 5 severe disability programs, and by the way, in terms of English learners, about 90 English learners per grade level at both of those schools. So you're talking about super high need there. So that's something that the board will need to think about in the next few months is what would we do if we considered increasing choice in this district by offering K-8 campuses at schools other than Calaveras and HDO. And there would be a variety of reasons to do that. One is that if you look at the organizing principle behind the decisions families make in our community, choice is right at the heart of it. I was quoted a couple of weeks ago in an article in Bonito Link. We have 1 out of every 3 families in the Ladd Lane neighborhood chooses to enroll their child at a school outside of Ladd Lane. And I like to pick that school because it's just a happy, beautiful, fun, good school. The test scores are good. The culture is awesome. They have a wonderful new principal who's turning the whole school around. And a real hero who's been there, setting it all up. Janine, that was for you. But Ladd Lane's a good example. It's in a very nice neighborhood. It's convenient to get to. It's sort of easy to get to and get in and out. You know, you can get to some pretty easy streets to get to. But there's a culture in Hollister of choice. I have my own reason why, but I want my child at this school. And I live in this neighborhood, but I want my child at that school. The numbers district-wide are getting close to 40% of families are enrolling at schools that are not their neighborhood school. Yeah. And we have that data.
Yeah.
That explains the traffic, folks. So if I have $15 million in my funding allocation over the next 3 years that pertains to school facilities because Governor Newsom and the legislature came through with their bond, and they came back and we were able to pull some additional dollars in and things went our way, then one thing that the board could consider is allowing the updating of those schools to add classrooms and facilities for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at R.O. Hardin, at Sunny Slope, at Ladd Lane, and at Cerro Vista. And we have a precedent, and it's Calaveras. Calaveras, if you haven't been there before school, and the first day of school is kind of the best day to see it in action, it's just very beautiful. Like, all the parents just walk up there, more parents than Ladd Lane. My child goes to Ladd Lane, and we were all there with our Bob strollers and our Starbucks and everything. But the Calaveras families were there, like, set up, boom, boom, boom. Every inch of that campus was filled with parents at Calaveras. Then I'm thinking, they have all their kids there.
Not with Starbucks.
No.
No.
They were there with their children, but they have all their kids there.
Yeah.
Everyone in the family is there. So the mom and dad are not splitting on that first day of school to take the middle schooler here. And I think that's a part of it. I think I see that when I go to that campus, so there's a precedent there. We would want to have a process that's very similar to what is at Calaveras now, where there's about 65 to 70 fifth graders. And of those students, not all want to go to Calaveras. Some of the kids are just kind of like, I'm ready for middle school, I wanna meet new people, I wanna go to Rancho, my older brother went to Rancho. And then some parents say, the idea of having all my children together is really attractive, and I want them together. And those families at that school, they have preference because they have siblings in lower grades. And then with the 5 or 6 spots that are available, we run a lottery, which is also already in place at the Hollister Dual Language Academy. So there's a lot of precedent there. My plan is to engage parents next week in talking about this and having this conversation. It's in the materials that I put out regarding the parent input sessions. I'll gauge their interest and ask them to fill out a survey at those events and bring that back to the board in October for your consideration. Because I think the next 90 days are a time where this board can make some decisions that really do good for the Hollister School District. And I think considering some of these potential decisions are among those opportunities that the board has.
I like this idea. I also, in correlation with both of to do this, Calaveras does not have a multi-purpose room. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the campuses that we have to prepare them for this. I mean, I can't believe Calaveras has gone as long as they have without one. And really considering the students that we have there, which is extensive, to not have one of those is really a crime. Sierra Vista doesn't have a multi-purpose room. If we're going to go the K-8 thing.
And both schools have a footprint for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we also need to be thinking about that for the future too.
Jim.
Well, it depends on.
Did I hear a Jim?
Yes.
I heard a Jim.
Who's Jim? Bottom line, if we keep that many kids on a campus and not have something like that, we were talking about other recreational activities, things like that, so that they want to come to school for, to deprive them of that continually. How old is Calaveras? I don't know, it's old. To still not have.
It's not as old as
It's
our
not a-
Hardin or
No, I
Sunnyside.
realize that, but R.O. Hardin has a multi-purpose room. Calaveras doesn't.
Right.
Sierra Vista doesn't. There's.
Yeah, that's
Sierra
right.
Vista and
Yeah,
Calaveras are the two.
those are the two.
They have libraries.
But to me, in looking at, if we're thinking Mesa and Rancho are large, and we're talking about creating larger campuses, K-8, because you're saying right now, our elementaries, some of our elementaries
Are in the
are
16.
past that. The combination ones, the R.O. Hardin, with our charter, Calaveras AAA, Gavilan Hills, HTLA, we already knew this was coming. We knew that 5 years ago, 8 years ago, we knew this was coming. So that was the intent of figuring out where we were going. I mean, we had this conversation about moving AAA to Mains, because we had open classrooms there, we had the facilities. So if we're gonna reduce, because now we're expanding K-8, it's gonna open up classrooms at those locations, but where would these other, schools go that are in need of rooms? So, I mean, it's a whole shifting of trying to work the pieces, and, I love the K-8, I like the fact that, as a family, you can drop all your kids off together and you want that flexibility. It's an amazing opportunity to provide that, but we also, the impact and the size of how we want each site to look like and what's manageable. And taking that into consideration, it's not just, what people want, but it's also what we can manage and what we can offer in an environment that is still worth learning, you know, and providing them with the gyms and the necessary, you know, rooms, you know, like our special ed. I would love to see classrooms designed specifically for our special ed student needs, not our last buildings, you know, some corner somewhere that aren't designed for them. I would love for us to invest in classrooms that are well-equipped for our students at all capacities.
A fully staffed science lab at Calaveras. You have your AAA Academy there, you have 7th and 8th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah, you don't have science labs. I know, I was talking to Diego, I was like, could we get a portable that's just a lab?
They just won a national honor without them.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But
we
going
wanna
to,
support something like that.
going to your question, though, and I don't know, we don't know, right? We don't know what the developments, how many kids are bringing in,
Right.
we can kind of guesstimate. But would it take away from Mays and Rancho? Not necessarily, right? Because if you're still getting an influx of people, it's now, okay, you've opened up more opportunities throughout the campuses versus enrolling everybody into Mays and Rancho. And I'm gonna bring it up, but the students at Mays and Rancho, when I went to talk to them, that was one of their biggest concerns, is you are putting so many kids in this school. They're like, we bump into each other, it's so packed. So I like that we're looking at options and ideas. And I think as a parent, I like the fact that you can, I mean, I'm one of those, I have my kids at HDLA and my nieces and nephews and everybody and all our neighborhoods, right? But we're a community there and we're able to drop off all of our kids at one location. And it works for us, maybe not for everybody, but it's good to have, I think, options. But I'm also wondering, how are we gonna do that at Calaveras? With all that development, like where are these portables gonna
Well,
go?
there's a lot of room at Calaveras.
They have room.
They have a lot of room.
So I guess that's kind of how visually I'd like.
The other,
You got it.
the other thing,
No, the field, they have room on the field.
We talked about this, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
the other thing is that,
All right, send them all over there.
the data that I presented regarding school size definitely shows how impacted in terms of numbers, Gavilan Hills, HDLA, that school wasn't designed as a middle school.
No.
And yet it has almost 1,000 kids.
Yep.
And R.O. Hardin, as you know, is connected physically as a space to the Hollister Prep School. Those two schools combined are 1,000 kids. So it is as large as Gavilan Hills HDLA. Having said that, I have worked closely with the CEO of the Hollister Prep School to have the conversation about acquiring more space for more facilities. Because, you know, it seems to me now like a long time ago, but initially in February and March when we were looking at our facilities use agreement with Hollister Prep and seeing and understanding their desire to have their 6th, 7th, and 8th graders remain physically on their campus. And now after hearing and seeing the enrollment trends here and thinking about asking our families at R.O. Hardin, it's only possible if we acquire more space and use it to provide classroom facilities. So at the schools that we're talking about, those schools have space. It would be incumbent on us over time to place classroom facilities at those schools. So it would be part of a longer term building plan for the school district, definitely, to do so.
When does the demographer come back, or is he done for the year?
No, the demographer will be back at our October school board meeting.
Okay. Because that will solve this solution, or that.
We have to move. I mean, we can't sit back and kind of just hope and wonder. We have to have a game plan moving forward. We have to start establishing something this year to prepare for next year, whether it's portables, whether it's, even if it's a multi-purpose room, and if we have to finance, I mean, we gotta look at what's out there, what we can do, what we're going to need to do, because we know we gotta get there. We just gotta figure out how we're gonna get there.
And have priorities, have
Correct.
a list. This is the first thing, or we address as we go down the line. Obviously, this isn't something you can do overnight.
No,
It's something, it's a long-range
Right.
plan. But we do need to improve every campus, what we offer the kids at every campus, we need to improve.
well, that was like the restoration committee that when I first got back, was on the board, that was the game plan. So you had to have a vision as to where you were going to be investing every year, as to what you were gonna bring back, what you could fiscally handle and manage and support. And so we have to do that same idea with facilities and encapsulating, just on everyday needs, on making sure that our facilities are up to par.
But we also need to know what our parents want.
Well, yes, and
That's gonna be a critical
That's gonna be
factor.
key.
We have to
Right.
listen to our community.
Yeah.
And we're all thinking they're gonna be happy with the K-8.
Yeah,
We're
we don't-
assuming that they're gonna be happy with the K-8.
Right.
But we need numbers. We
Right.
need to know what they actually, because this'll be an expense if we're gonna do this.
It is.
And during our last LCAP process, we reached out to families using our communication system, our email communication system, and got back close to 400 parent responses via email. I think we can double that now that we've implemented more efforts to get more parents to sign up in that program. So I think we're gonna have a really strong number of survey responses to share with the board in October, as well as feedback from those parent input sessions, which are the 30th, the 1st, and the 2nd next week at our 6 elementary school sites, and moving it forward so that we're ready in October to talk turkey.
Yes.
Will we have next October projections on the developer fee account? 'Cause right now, I think we have $2 million in there, right? Is that spent already or?
5.54.
Five?
Uh,
5.54.
Yeah, 5.5.
5.5.
And that's not, there's no claim on that for Rancho Santana?
There's a claim for all of that.
Oh.
Pretty much for Rancho Santana at this point. So we don't have,
'Cause we didn't have.
outside of that piece, we don't have a lot. But as it's coming in, we're getting to that point where we're gonna start having some.
Excess.
And what is our hope for the $275 million that the state released of Prop 51 money? The bond.
As I was leaving my office coming here, I received something, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. I got it from our facilities consultants. So as soon as I get back over to my office, I'll take a look and see where we are.
It's a heck of a cliffhanger. It's
Yeah.
$1 billion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it
You're excused.
Yeah. No. Is it 7 digits or 8 digits?
That multi-purpose right now.
No, Jim.
Grant,
I'm sorry.
Grants, I don't know, begging, I don't know.
You can do it.
The biggest responsibility we have is to accomplish the difficult juggling act of the money, the feedback, the facilities, the long-term plan, the academics, the knowledge that we have many, many families who desire keeping their kids together, the knowledge that we have school staff at Mays and Rancho telling us, pay attention, we're very worried about campus culture, that you have a superintendent telling you we have an extraordinarily high number of ELs and special ed and specialized programs all at these schools because the current 2 options to attend elsewhere besides Rancho and Mays for middle school are both elective. The HDLA program is application-based and elective, and you have a higher percentage of involved and increased participation on parents. And then AAA is comprised of students who are academically precocious and curious and high achieving. And so that dynamic has resulted in both Rancho and Mays having real culture challenges. So if we went to a model that had K-8 campuses and one of the criteria were siblings, then there's an evening of that process. It's not elective, it's more family-based. So you might have a very high-achieving child who says, I'm going to Rancho San Justo or Bays, I don't have a sibling below me, or vice versa. So it's just more of an evening process that would happen. And in addition to some of the requests to transfer outside of the district, which do happen after 5th grade.
The site meetings that you're gonna have, is it gonna be parent-only input or staff and teachers able to?
We'll come out and meet with staff members at these school sites in the month of October. Yeah. And I think, it's sometimes it's the same group, it's the parents are the teachers, so they might attend both meetings.
The other thing is that, Rancho and Mays, we need to put some money in to home ec, maybe getting
Bring the wood shop back.
Wood shop.
Really nice.
Having a theater class, having
More elective.
Well, the CTE, that you
Yeah.
were saying, there's money there to invest in those
Right.
junior
We
highs.
need to do that, to make them, because I don't wanna see Rancho and Mays end up with not having children that, they don't wanna be there.
Right. And what we wanna do is we want the classrooms that we have to do more than provide 4 walls and a ceiling.
That's
We
right.
want them to be part of the draw to those schools. And
Where parents will want them to go.
And I think our grant application for CTE incentive will be very competitive. I think when we sit down with Diana and with Vicky and with Caroline, I think we'll put together something that will inject money as well as optimism and as well as a plan to have programs that connect to San Benito High School so that our students can see a path for themselves. It's not just a class I'm taking, it's I know where I'm going and I'm excited about the classes that the high school offers as well.
I like that. I like that idea.
Me too.
We'll see.
Good?
Yes.
Okay, going to consent items. Anyone want to pull any of the consent items?
Well, that hadn't been done.
Well, that's right. So we don't have to worry about that. Do I need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items.
All in
Second.
favor? Oh,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on, 5-0, here, go to the end. Discussion action item 15A, discussion on a coalition for a new.
14.
I thought that was it.
You did 13, consent, you did the consent for 13, so now we're going to 14?
Consent always go, 14 is part of,
No.
okay.
No.
General obligation bond, that's a consent item, it says.
You were talking 13.
I said 15.
We voted on 13, now we gotta vote on 14.
Oh, I'm
Right,
sorry,
Linda?
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Consent for
Thanks, Liz.
14, do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Moving on to 15, discussion action item, discussion on a coalition for a new community library and resource center.
Let me talk about this a little bit. Through the intergovernmental council, I got involved with this. And as a school district, of course, we're promoting literacy.
Hopefully.
Yes. And so they came to us to ask for our support. They are going to be going to a feasibility study. And they're using the vendor EMC, I believe, that will be doing the feasibility study. They have resolutions from the city and the county. They would like our resolution or endorsement. As you can see here, this blank page, they'd like us to fill it out and to endorse the idea of a new countywide public library. It will, it'll depend on the feasibility study, how they'll go after the funding. You know, our large farmers don't like the parcel tax because they have to pay. Sales tax hurts your low-income families. So it'll depend how that works out. They want to, it's been since the year 2000 that the state financed a library bond. And so they're gonna go to Rivas and Caballero about trying to, you know, write something up for a library bond from the state. We would qualify because what they wanna use is the take down the building, the old county building.
The current one,
And take that down.
The old gym?
Well, that's, well, they've talked about that whole area there, that block. And, cause that's county, I mean, it's not like they'd have to buy the land or anything.
Right.
So, they're looking at, they would like to see like 4 stories. They'd like to see where they could rent out rooms, for continuing ed, meeting rooms, which there's really not a lot of meeting rooms.
like the Watsonville Library.
Yes,
Have you been to that?
yes, that's very
exactly what
similar
you're
to that,
describing.
Santa Cruz,
Gilroy.
Monterey, Gilroy has a beautiful library. Have a coffee shop that could generate some income. So they would like to have some income coming in, it's not gonna pay for it, but we need it. I mean, a library, the square footage should be a half of a person per population or person for square foot.
Okay.
Yes, that's how big you judge your library. Yeah, so either a person or a half a person per square foot, according to Marty Richmond. He was at the meeting
So
last Saturday.
basically what they're asking for is just us endorsing it.
Yes.
And they will do the rest.
Yes,
We're-
they would like us to
In other words,
endorse it.
we're behind them.
Yes,
Okay.
and I kind of thought that for a school district that we would promote literacy.
I would think so. I would think so.
Now, what we can do, and if you turn the page, you'll notice that there's one of those resolutions where the whereas.
Yeah, I see that.
And I don't know if we wanna do this or just simply do the endorsement thing. And that's up to the board.
What's the difference?
This looks a
I don't
lot more
know,
legal over here.
Superintendent Ochoa, what's the difference between an endorsement page and the whereas?
This is much more legal looking over here.
Or do we need both, or one or the other?
Why would we need both?
I don't know.
It's, both are ceremonial. One would happen outside of a school board meeting, the other would be discussed in open session, agendized, and then voted on, and then sent to them. So it really would depend on the formality that the board wanted to move forward with. A resolution, assuming there were support for the resolution, would be summative so that all 5 elected board members could, if you chose to support it, do something in that vein. Or as individual board members, you could direct me to type up a draft of a sort of a form that you would include your individual support, and on district letterhead, send them an endorsement specifically from board member Elizabeth Martinez, and then a separate one from board president So it's really,
So
it's up
each
to
one
the
of us
board.
would fill this out?
You could, I would recommend that the board direct me to come up with something on our letterhead that fills a form, yeah.
Why don't we just agree, what I propose, we adopt the wording of the county
Resolution.
resolution, because it is a next step of formality,
Yes.
and,
And
as long as we can wait till
and that could
October.
come to the board in October, approved, voted on, signed, and provided to the county within a couple of
I
days.
think it'd be nice on behalf of all of us versus individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I personally like the wording as they did it, so.
That's why I brought it to the attention of the board. I don't know how you wanted to do it. I happen to like the way, I think the way Rob proposed it is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
In fact, I mean, is there anything formalized about this resolution number? I mean, could you assign a number to it right now?
Just because it had not been discussed or agendized, I would wanna hold off on that, but I will take the resolution language itself and put it into our resolution format and bring it to the board.
Well, it's a discussion action item.
It is, but it is not included as one of the items that would have been up for public review prior to the meeting.
Gotcha.
So at this point, what we're doing is just move.
You just give me direction.
Give
Giving direction to the
superintendent.
To bring back a resolution. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we have the superintendent, have the superintendent put together a resolution to endorse the library for the county of San Benito.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Moving to the next discussion action item, approval of a provisional intern permits for the 2019-20 school year. I'm sure this is Erica. Yes.
Good evening, Board President and members of the board. Item 15B involves discussion and action.
I'd just like to make a motion that we accept these. Did everybody read it?
I did.
Wait, which are we talking about? The
Verification requirements for the provisional internship?
I need to get an understanding of what these are.
Okay.
Okay, so what this is it allows for these 5 certificated employees to work during the duration of the 2019-2020 school year to fill these particular vacancies in our school, at our schools. And it also allows for them as employees that are up and coming in the educational world to engage in conversations with universities, to enroll in intern programs should they choose to. At the end of the the work year calendar in June 2020, they will be released as per their contracts because it is a 1-year contract. It's a legal way for the district to employ these certificated employees as they work towards an intern credential.
Okay, so they don't have their credential.
Correct.
Right.
Yes,
In theory, they're close to it,
yes,
but
They're
this
working
allows
towards
us to hire them.
yes.
Okay, and that's why they're interns.
It's a provisional intern permit, meaning that they are working towards becoming interns with credentials.
And this is a 1-year only?
Yes.
Okay, now, what happens if they don't do this at the end of the year?
If they don't do this and they have used all avenues of,
They're done.
yes,
That's
they
what I
may go into another field.
Gotcha.
Perhaps.
I got it.
But if they pass their tests and do what they want,
Then we move on.
Yes.
they can stay with us.
If we have the ability to provide them with another, if they have not exhausted every avenue through the CTC, we would be able to employ them.
Right, so if they've done their coursework or whatever they need to do and they're good to go, we can employ them.
They're moving on towards the production.
Yes.
Do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the teachers that are listed in the provisional intern permits for the school year 2019-2020.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next 15C, approval of resolution 719-20 in the matter of authorizing execution and delivery of an equipment lease purchase agreement and approving related documents and action. Okay?
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Ochoa. So what this relates to is Footsteps to Brilliance. So what we were doing is we were kind of given two options. One is to pay for the whole program up front, the other one was to finance the program. It's a very large expenditure to do it outright, about just a hair under $400,000. So what we wanted to do is take a look to see how enrollment was going. If we got a larger than expected influx of students, that would help give us the financial resources we need to just pay for it all up front. Well, we didn't quite get that, so we're moving forward with the financing option. So basically how that works is it's through a third-party financing company. In order to go through all of that, the financing company wants to make sure that the notes are sort of considered tax-free municipal, not bonds, but tax-free municipal notes. So any interest that's earned on those notes by the note holders, that interest will be tax-free. So they want a letter from our attorneys, basically saying that, giving their unqualified opinion, saying that that will be tax-free. In order for that to happen, there are certain things that we have to have in place. One of those is this resolution. So this is basically just making sure that all information is out there, everything's above board, so that our attorneys feel comfortable giving government capital that opinion. So once we have this, there are just a couple more small things that we need to do on this end, and then it'll be funded. So Footsteps Brilliance, since they know that we're going through this process, they've been very good to us. They've said, okay, well, we'll go ahead and just turn on your licenses now. So we're already, everything's good, everything's being implemented now. It's just sort of this, back of the house sort of stuff that we need to take care of so we can get that funded and get payment out to them.
What kind of equipment are we leasing here?
It's interesting that it says equipment lease purchase, but by equipment, it's really a perpetual license for the Footsteps Brilliant software.
For software, though?
Correct.
We're not talking, okay, I got you.
And those are the thousands of books that are on the software.
Mm-hmm.
The perpetual license provides, no matter how many students we grow, it'll always cover all the students. It's kind of like STRS, no matter how long I live,
Right. Does it add new books as they come about?
It's all the updates and everything.
Yeah, so as new books come around, it'll add new books?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's all the updates, as many licenses as we need as the district grows, it covers everything.
And does it like give you word count, like grade level and word count? And so like if I'm a seventh grader, but I'm reading at ninth grade level, can I get a book at the ninth grade level?
Oh, this is for all grades?
Yeah.
It goes.
I thought it went up to
Right, it goes up through, I believe,
third.
But the levels are, a third grader who's reading above level.
Right, but a seventh grader won't be able to access it.
They're not gonna be, it's not for middle school students.
Oh,
That's what I thought
oh, it's only
earlier.
for TK through.
TK through 3.
Okay, that's what I know.
I have third graders who read really
Yeah.
far in advance. We are training our library media specialists coming up. We've already had a training for all of our TK3 teachers. They're excited. The data's, they're using it. So we just need to keep the momentum going. So our library media specialists, then our next round will be some of our extended learning teachers.
So this is a one-time expense, forever, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll start talking about literacy.
Not forever, for 5 years.
It's a
Five years.
time limited.
It's a 5-year window.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but we have with us the
The license is
license.
forever, so once it's paid off in the 5 years, we have a perpetual license moving forward. So we'll permanently have license to use that software.
Okay, but my point is, that's a one-time payment.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I need.
So, Gabe, so did we agree to get Footsteps to Brilliance? And we don't have the money to pay for it? I mean, so we're borrowing for it?
So what it was, so the board had approved the initial, I believe it was a few months ago, and it was broken out that way as, I wanna say it was just under $90,000 a year for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, something to that effect. Beginning next year. So the board had approved all of that stuff. This is just the formality for that, basically for that payment plan option. So this is just the final step in getting that payment plan option approved.
So what was the thing you talked about before about, we thought we had money?
So what we were doing is we're trying to see if we could pay cash for it. But that depended on how, like, sort of what our enrollment was like, to see how much money we were getting in this year, to see if we could sort of expend that much cash in one fiscal year. Since we didn't get the sort of enrollment that we would need to be able to do that, we said, okay, we'll go with the 5-year financing plan.
But we would not have the perpetual license if we paid up front. And it would need to be paid immediately, as opposed to beginning the financing piece and the first payment next year, and it's a perpetual license. So there was, what is the best in the long run?
Yeah.
Gabe, who ends up paying the $6,500 for legal fees? It looks like we are.
Yes.
Why would we pay somebody else's legal fees?
Those legal fees are ours,
How are we incurring those legal fees?
because our attorneys have to do several things. One, they have to give them a tax opinion letter, so that's something that they have to go through and research, and we actually have to give them a lot of documentation before they're willing to give that.
So this is their bill? Our attorneys are?
Yes.
This is their
Yes.
bill for $6,500
This
for
is-
work they've done on this?
Correct.
Well, so it's $38,249 is what we're gonna be paying in finance costs
How much?
and legal fees.
38,000.
Under total payment amount, it'll be $438,000, so it's $38,000 we're paying extra.
To finance.
Well, again, literacy is the name of the game, and if we can get them to be reading TK through 3, we,
Well, this is where we really want to concentrate
right,
our money.
this is the name of the game,
Because this is exactly the name of the game,
Yeah.
TK3.
right?
And as long as this is a truly effective program, I could see approving this. But,
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the payment plan that's listed there, and that we make the commitment to Footsteps to Brilliance, because this is our basic tenet, is early literacy. This is one of our goals. This is what our school district's about. It's the children need to read.
Well, I think, for me, we already
We
made that
approved it.
commitment,
Yeah,
so.
we did.
We just gotta pay for it now.
Paying our bills is what it is.
So
Out of $38,000 interest.
I already came to that conclusion before, and
My issue is, if I have this correct, we agreed to do this.
Yeah.
And I think the vote was unanimous. But now we're looking at the legal documents because somebody has said, hey, we're gonna convert this to a tax-free bond. It has nothing to do with us. But because of that, we're incurring an additional $6,500 in cost. And it seems to me either the leasing company or the Footsteps to Brilliance people should be eating that fee because this is for the convenience of the third party, not us, right? We did not earlier agree to this $6,500. And that's why, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, another way to look at it is, it's a cost on us if we want to move forward doing this method. We have to have our attorneys take a look at all this stuff and give them a letter to say, yes, it is, it will be tax-free. Because that's what was anticipated from the beginning. So when the first thing was approved in the first paperwork, when they're saying, okay, you can finance this over this time, that was still contemplated then, that this was gonna be something tax-free. Now, they just want an opinion from our attorneys saying that, yes, it will be. That's really standard in this sort of situation. I'm more than willing to just take that up with Footsteps to Brilliance to see if they're willing to take half of it, whatever it is we can do. I'm more than willing to do that.
Yeah, I think you should, because, again, these are where my eyes go to, because even the initial presentation was sort of sneaky, because we're looking at the $390,000 cost, and then you had to physically do the math, which I did on the thing, to say, what is the true cost of it? I don't like that. And just like I don't like this, that $6,500 just sticks out to me going, why is that in there? So I just wish we were more honest and upfront, or they were more honest upfront, on this. So, I'll vote for this as long as we agree that comes out for now.
I will do everything I can to try to get them to pay for it. I mean, at the end, it's, we approached our attorneys to say, hey, we need this. They had to do all the legwork on, taking a look at all the documents, because we have to provide our attorneys with our financial statements, with, all kinds of other documentations of other changes and things that we've had, our bond programs and everything. So, on top of that, there is a requirement through the CD AIC, which is a state entity that basically holds a system that's open to the public, where school districts, actually any municipality, has to put all the information of all their long-term debt. So there has to be a disclosure, since we have bonds, so we have to have a disclosure prepared for that, and all sorts of, there are all sorts of the other little intricacies that are a result of doing the financing this way, but aren't necessarily part of the agreement itself. So
So essentially what you'd be doing is asking them to pay our attorney bill of $6,500.
Yeah, because it's for their convenience.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's the point I wanted to bring up. They're the ones that put that in there. They basically said, you need to do this. So we, in a sense, were forced to do something that they wanted. Okay.
Is this gonna slow up the kids using the,
They already gave us the authorization,
Yeah.
right?
so the kids are already using it?
Well, negotiate. Yeah, talk to them. I agree with that.
If not, we're still approving this program.
Okay.
Alright.
So I withdraw my motion, and I will make a new motion that we approve of this, oh shoot.
Resolution?
It's resolution 07-1920 at the top there.
Right there.
Resolution 7/19/20, with the exception of the $6,500 for legal fees.
Oh, second, but what happens if,
Negotiate.
Oh, yes.
What happens?
Oh, wait, okay. I'd like to make a motion
Gave the authorization to negotiate.
to give Gabe the authorization to negotiate the $6,500 in legal fees for the Footsteps to Brilliance program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0? Okay. Thank you, Gabe.
Now you're gonna give us
Hang in there with the
snooze?
negotiations, Gabe.
Yeah, so,
He's gonna give us snooze.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh, not agendized.
No,
Huh?
It was
Not
part of the last-
agendized.
But it was part of the.
Nope.
That's true, it wasn't.
Cliffhanger.
How about
Telenovela.
it is
Announcements.
announcement reminders, can he do
Announcements.
that?
Under announcements.
Under
You have to go
announcements.
through
okay, stay right there.
Don't go.
Especially if it's
Moving on to board member report. Anybody have anything to report?
Jan?
You know, I've been busy. LULAC, library meetings, intergovernmental meetings, they've been keeping me busy. And I am learning and enjoying everything I'm doing. That's all I can say.
I had the pleasure of going with Superintendent Choa to Mays and Rancho on a Thursday when the kids were gone and basically interviewed teachers, not the principal, and got some very positive feedback at both schools about the way the school year started. And I was very pleased. I assume you were as well.
It was universal.
It was universal. Yeah. That's my. Anything else? Future agenda items.
I talked with Superintendent Ochoa, but I would really like to see the district administration, site administration, HESTA and CSEA come together with a little group and come up with attendance incentives to help increase ADA. And I'm thinking small rewards, maybe some big rewards, but I'm also thinking field trips, assemblies, professional storytellers, things like this, go to the symphony, all these things that we can be doing that kids want to come to school.
I think that's definitely something we should discuss.
Yeah, well, I would like to see, I don't know if it's Caroline that would put it together or the,
Kip and Carol.
or Kip and Caroline do it, but get this group together where we're getting input from the teachers and the site administrators and district administrators so that we can come up with a game plan and really target it through the year. I just think it would be awesome. I'd also like to see a future progress report on how Rancho Santana is doing. Maybe a monthly update in the superintendent's report, what's happening. Right now, Anderson Homes is telling the homeowners that the park that they're supposed to build cannot be built because they're waiting for the school district to take their extra dirt.
Where are we gonna take it?
That extra dirt.
Where do they want us to put it?
We can't discuss it now, but there is some history there.
Is that extra dirt land or is it just?
I don't know. I'm
We'll
just
take our
telling you,
extra
I'm
land.
just telling you what's in the wind. So, we could take it from, wherever you wanna take it.
There's history there. We do need to, we'll
There is
take it to the
extra-
negotiations, and I have all the notes from that.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, so we need some reports going on about what's happening with the construction there. And that's it for me.
Any others?
Could we, by the next school board meeting, if we're not looking at them at that school board meeting, have a concrete schedule of when we're going to look at each school presented by the principal? And let me ask, do you want to see what we got before as a template, or do you have those?
I'll pull it from the board.
Okay, because to me, it was very helpful, and and I assume the discipline issues will be,
Discuss.
We'll include that.
Along with that, do we have a time, not so much the date that they were doing it, but how long they speak?
You know, like
Yes.
a limit,
Yes.
and let them know ahead of time, this is how long we want the presentation, no longer than X, no shorter than whatever. Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Time limited
I don't know about you.
presentations, yes.
And the superintendent, you have a clear direction as to, what are the key pieces.
Right.
And then giving them, kind of a little open piece for them to kind of plug in. But certain, because I know they were pretty much formatted pretty evenly, about the same, but it made it a little weird
I
sometimes
think it could be
because I would.
truncated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like permission to be able to yell out, or any of us to be able to yell out, focus. When things,
Maybe kindly remind.
You only have so much time. Moving on to announcement, I'd like to make one announcement, and I believe it came in a text from you about the the first month's enrollment, we're up to 97, was it 97 point something? Which is a big improvement over what we had last year, so.
So that's why we need to keep that
And keep
going.
it going up. So I was very pleased with that. Now, Dave.
Okay, so, in the next few days, we'll be receiving paperwork from the state that we have to send back to them for reimbursement for 2 of our smaller projects. So that was the air conditioning projects at Cerro Vista and Calaveras. So that'll be $1 million, give or take a little bit. So, not the huge amount we were really hoping for, but at least it's a good start. I mean, we haven't received anything yet, so we do have that coming in. We have.
And that can only go back into the developer, the capital
Facilities.
improvements.
It goes into, yes, capital improvements.
Yeah.
So we also, in the first, where are we? 2.5 months of this fiscal year have received $1.04 million in developer fees. So we are a bit ahead of where we have been in the past. So hopefully that momentum keeps up. We'll keep collecting that at that rate. As far as the dirt issue that was brought up, there's a huge pile of our dirt on the parkland right now. That was dirt that was promised to us through the deal. We're gonna need to use that as fill dirt.
Right.
So as soon as we can get our clean dirt on the top, pushed over so they can fill that stuff in and then put our dirt back on top, they can start. But until we can get everything,
Are we still waiting on fishing game?
yes, so we're, we do have our ITP. We do have the ITP, so that part's fine, so
What's
once
the
you.
ITP?
Oh, I'm sorry, incidental take permit, so that's basically saying that we can remove any endangered species to a different area. So kind of what we're waiting on now is there are certain surveys and things that have to take place at a certain timeline. So those have been going as planned, and I think we're, if I'm not mistaken, supposed to start seeing people out there early next week,
What are they removing?
this Thursday. So this Thursday, they're gonna start,
What are they removing?
so there are owls.
Burrowing owls.
Burrowing owls.
Tiger salamanders.
Tigers, yeah.
Our staff are removing the owl?
No, no.
Oh.
You better not be.
How are you gonna do
That's a
that?
lawsuit waiting to happen
What are our people doing?
Our people, we have environmental specialists who
Okay.
are
Right.
handling that. So our people are not, we can't touch the land. So our environmental people
See, I
can,
was
we can't touch it.
So our grounds guys are not going out there doing any of this.
No, and then once groundwork starts, because of the naturally occurring asbestos thing, which is the whole issue of the dirt.
The dirt.
They can't touch it for a little while after that either, so, our construction crew can, our employees won't be able to.
Okay.
But our contractors, they said they'll be out Thursday starting to get things set up. And then they'll actually start moving around dirt. Do we have any estimate on that?
2 weeks after mobilization Monday.
So about 2 weeks from Monday?
I do wanna just say, we do have to stick to announcements.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Well, we have an announcement to do.
It sounded very announcement-ish.
Gold
Thank
shovel
you.
ceremony,
Groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking, thank you. Couldn't think of the word.
October school board meeting, you'll get a big update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
You may.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Linda, do we have anything to sign?
I think we have one thing.
Just start the reading.
Now
I know we
that the
can
meeting's
go
over.
off on that tangent. Sorry, I'm like, you're removing
Now that the meeting's over, I just want to say, you know, we voted, the school and the principal and the parents.
Stay on task.
We'll choose the mascot at Rancho Santana.
What did they choose?
Owls?
No,
We don't know.
with the owls, and then when they had an assembly, all the kids say.
Sell it to them.
That
would be super
A bunch of little kids.
That would be so.
Just show them the picture,
You gotta
that's
sell it
it.
to them.
Just show them the picture. I know, really done, man. Yeah. Cause the South Bend are no.
That would be so cute.
The owl, much better.
Sorry, Gabe, I just don't believe OPM. Other people's money.
This is for the secretary.
I need to.
That is, this is the forecast. What's up with